The real meaning behind Veterans Day, next on Village in Motion. Happy Veterans Day, and here it is again, November 11th, 2009, and all of us seniors, that you'll see a couple of us today, are still around, so we're happy. We've got a nice program for you this morning that it's different than what we've had in the past, and we're going to talk about the unknown soldier. And to start us off, we have Libby Haynes, who many of you know is one of our residents here, and Libby has been active in a post, an American Legion post, and I'll have her explain a little bit about the post, and then Libby, I'd like you to turn it over, introduce our guest, and we'll begin. Welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about the American Legion post. And,
thank you. The Unknown Soldier Post of Arlington is a very small post, but our post project is trying to do nice things for the tomb guards. And we sort of act as grandparents in absentia to them and help them out when they need help, and have a very nice relationship with these very fine young men. My guest is a member of Post 44, Donald Dennison, who is our post historian, and he's keenly interested in the history of the unknown soldier. And I would like him to go ahead and tell you about how we happen to have the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington.
Okay, Dan, welcome to the program. And,
well, thank
and
you
I'm
both.
going to give a little to you veterans around here. Dan was also a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, so and he survived. Absolutely, he's here. Dan, tell us a little bit about the unknown soldier. Now, it's a broad subject, and I don't want to go into the whole world. Just sort of start with the U.S. I think
it's a very broad subject. I think that in the 19th century, you would see unknown soldier on an individual grave, particularly in a Civil War cemetery. The idea of commemorating or drawing attention to one unknown soldier didn't happen for a long time. But in 1866, at the end of the Civil War, they took the remains from 2,111 soldiers who died on the battlefields at Manassas, and they put them in a grave behind the Lee Mansion. And
one mass grave?
It is, in fact. After that, there would be other things that would happen to our country, like the Spanish-American War, the sinking of the Maine, other things would happen, and that the country would respond individually to that situation. And but the idea of identifying an unknown soldier didn't really happen until about 1921. World War I was a pretty horrible thing. 16 million people died worldwide at it. 117,000 Americans died in World War I. And in 1920 and 1921,
117,000?
117,000.
Yeah.
That was deaths in service.
Yeah.
And at that time, our country was grieving, but relatively speaking, our losses were slight compared to the worldwide losses.
The other nations.
But at the same time, you also had the pandemic. So the pandemic losses intensified this interest in paying attention to this particular subject. Our idea for an unknown soldier came from England and France.
Oh, really?
Who had many losses, and many that they never recovered. And so in on the 11th of November, 1920, in both England and in France, they had ceremonies to commemorate their unknown soldiers. And in the case of England, their unknown soldier was interred in Westminster Abbey. And in the case of France, at the Arc de Triomphe. Other nations followed suit. The United States was at first indifferent until they heard from the mothers. And when the mothers checked in, it gained considerable momentum. In fact, interest for this subject probably solidified when the editor of Delineator magazine, a leading ladies magazine at the time, said we should do this.
Oh, really?
And after that, there was a resolution in Congress, and then the ball got rolling. So, but I wanted to show you the reality of the cemetery. There was this young lady that that was with our occupation force in Germany that went to Verdun, and she participated, and this is the city gate at Verdun, and Verdun was a major site for a French and German battle in 1916, but very near there was where Americans fought at the Meuse-Argonne. And the Americans with this nurse went to an unknown cemetery, and you can see that they crafted
And is
a
that a
flagpole.
photo of it there?
That's it. These are Americans from the 3rd United States Army. They made a flagpole, and then you can see that the graves are new. They have wooden crosses. It looks European, but yet they're American flags. And you can see the wreaths. It looks like that they're commemorating Memorial Day in 1920. So this was happening all over the battlefield. So there was considerable interest in those things to show that these Americans did not die in vain. And so eventually, Congress approved the idea of an unknown soldier, and that in the City Hall of Chalon-sur-Marne in eastern France, the French helped us select our unknown soldier.
Really?
And Sergeant Edward Younger, with a spray of white roses, selected from 4 caskets from the 4 major American cemeteries, our unknown soldier. And then you see in this picture that the unknown soldier is being taken from their city hall and carried to the train station to go to Le Havre to come back to the United States. The French were considerably involved in this ceremony. And then you might ask the question, what happened to the other 3?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
And the other 3 were taken to the Meuse-Argonne American Cemetery, and this is a picture of where they're at.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to.
They're buried together there?
They're
the 3 of them?
buried together
Okay.
there, and I was very interested to find them, to think that they were that close to being our unknown soldier. So.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So then the body, it came over to the States, and then what happened?
Well, it made its way to Le Havre, and at Le Havre, well, this one right here I want to show you. This is 2 years ago, the mayor of Chalon-sur-Marne. Our connection with France is tied pretty close on this subject. He came, and it's very unusual that anybody gets that close to our Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. and he paid his respects with the same spray of flowers.
Oh, really?
And by the way, that spray of flowers is actually in the grave
Oh,
when he was buried.
When he was buried.
So at Le Havre, the American ship, the USS Olympia, which was the flagship of Admiral Dewey in the Spanish-American War, received the duty of bringing the unknown soldier home. And it was escorted out of French waters by the USS Reuben James, which was sunk, the first ship sunk by the Germans in World War II. This young man here had the good fortune of being in the Marine detachment on the Olympia. And his name was Harold Morrison, and he came from Woodstock, Virginia. And he was there when it arrived at Washington Navy Yard. And this is a panoramic photograph on that gray day on the 9th of November, 1921. And I'm going to go through the various parts of it. This is the florist at the top of the gangway with the flowers that would be with the unknown soldier. And here are the young men that were in the Marine detachment. And then the next one, and these are the officials, including General Pershing, the Secretaries of War, Secretary of Navy, and General Lejeune from the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And then here you see the unknown soldier being carried off the ship. And then here is the 3rd U.S. Cavalry that escorted the unknown soldier to the Capitol.
Oh, my.
And they escorted it to the tune of Onward Christian Soldiers.
Oh, boy, beautiful.
At the Capitol, the unknown soldier rested on the catafalque that was used by President Kennedy, President McKinley, President Lincoln, and I'm missing one, James Garfield.
Yeah.
And on the morning of the 11th at 8:30, the procession began down Pennsylvania Avenue. And these particular photographs were taken by actual witness to it. These were not professional photographs here. And in this shot, you can see General Pershing. You can see Admiral Coombs, the Chief of Naval Operations. You can see the Secretary of War and the Secretary of the Navy. And here you can see the honorary pallbearers marching with the cortege.
Were they all the services, the honorary pallbearers?
They were all of services at that time.
Yeah.
There was a conspicuous absence of any emphasis to the Army Air Service because it was too young.
Yeah.
This is very important right here. This is 15th and Pennsylvania Avenue, and you can see here the Medal of Honor winners that were participating in this activity, and some of them going back to the Civil War.
Really?
And of the young men that had fought in the Great War, or World War I, there were 124 that were there.
Medal of Honor?
Medal of Honor.
Okay.
And so then, approaching the Arlington Amphitheater, where the unknown soldier is interred, different people made it in different ways. President Harding started late and got caught in traffic. And rumor has it that because he was late at that event, it increased the emphasis to complete the building of Memorial Bridge.
Really?
Here you can see the several of the tens of thousands of people that were there. There were people that were in the amphitheater who had tickets, and there were people that were surrounding it. And you can see here that it was such an event that people were even standing on the roof of the amphitheater. And this is President Harding giving his address, and essentially this was his presentation to say that this is the war to end all wars. And outside you can see the cavalry preparing, the artillery preparing for the final salute, and that was given when the unknown soldier was laid to rest. And you can see this is the actual second that it happened.
Oh my.
Right here. So afterwards,
Now, these are flowers that are being placed on the
these
tomb
these
by
are
the
these are people
dignitaries,
that are visited sometime after
Oh, okay.
after that event.
and in
There
those
were
days you could
literally on
go
that
there.
day there were literally hundreds, if not 1,000, wreaths. There were awards given. There was recognition given by foreign military leaders, including Admiral Beatty from Britain, General Foch from France. It was a major event.
Yes, it sure was.
And then right here,
Okay, referring to a newspaper item now.
right here, this is the Times-Picayune
Okay.
from New Orleans on the 12th of November,
Now they're gonna
1921.
Get a shot of it here in a minute.
And it says, "Nation thrills in pride
There you go.
as homage is paid men who did not die in vain." And
what's the date on the paper there?
this is the
Dan?
day afterwards. It's essentially reporting the event.
Oh, okay.
And at this time, because this was Armistice Day, at 12 noon, everyone across the United States stood and for 2 minutes in a moment of silence. The church bells rang. There were any number of ways to express their appreciation for those that had died, those that had served. And it was also a major media event. We need to keep in mind that President Harding was the first president to have his inauguration on radio. But for this event, it was carried live to New York City and to San Francisco by telephone and by loudspeaker in major forums like there's what's over Grand Central Station? Madison Square Garden.
Madison.
And so
Dan, let me ask you, did the 2 minutes of silence, did that just sort of gradually phase out and we stopped doing it, or is there anyone still doing it to your knowledge?
I'm not
That
aware
just
of it.
seemed like a wonderful, wonderful way of doing it. But see, here I am in my 80s, and that's the first I heard of that.
I am not aware of it.
Yeah.
And Armistice Day has been converted into Veterans Day.
Yeah.
And so many of the urgencies of that era
Yeah.
have been reduced by time, I guess.
But this is really the day when we should be honoring our fallen, and Memorial Day is we sort of, or is it the other way around?
Quite frankly, you touch upon a very important point here. The people that were sponsoring this event wanted it to happen on Memorial Day. The Harding administration said, we can't get it done. And so it had to be on to coincide with Armistice Day.
Okay.
And so the point being that our other unknown soldiers for Korea and the Second World War, they were interred on Memorial Day.
Yeah. Vietnam also, I guess.
Vietnam as well, as long as
Okay.
the unknown soldier for Vietnam was there.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Dan, we have I don't want to break up here. We have another great shot over there. I don't want to miss it. We're down to about the last 8 or 9 minutes. Did we talk about that photo over on your left?
On the left,
Yeah.
it shows the honorary pallbearers, and this was taken by a Kodak Brownie camera. This was not a professional camera. This
It's a
was taken by
wonderful shot.
an individual who was a student in Washington and just was there and took that picture and just as the cortege passed. And
Now, did you enlarge that?
I enlarged it.
Boy, you did a wonderful job. That's just beautiful. Just a great shot. Yeah. Okay, Dan. Now, so I sort of interrupted your train of thought there. So continue. You want me to?
Well, I guess that I would say that we should pay attention to the unknown soldier, and then I guess my point is there are some things that we should consider to do because it is Veterans Day and formerly Armistice Day, and that includes possibly putting flowers on the grave of those that have served the country. But there's other things that can be done as well. Contribute to those activities that support our wounded warriors that are serving
number
today.
Those, yeah, number those.
And I guess we could go through any number of them.
Yeah.
Support your veterans of foreign wars or your American Legion.
Yeah. Let me ask you a little bit about the tomb and the soldiers around there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for example, we always have, it's 24 hours a day. Let me ask you, how many steps do these guys take?
They take 21 steps.
21 steps. Now, why 21? Is there a reason for that?
It symbolizes a 21-gun salute.
Okay.
And it essentially they are minding and overseeing the heart and soul of our country. Basically,
No, that's a great way of putting it.
and it is not just the unknown; it's the missing and it's the MIAs. It's those that have served in any number of capacities.
Yeah. Now, is it always they're always Army? They're soldiers. There aren't any Navy or Marine
There
Corps
are
people
this
that do
is
the
a-
marching. I'm
Well,
talking about.
the Tomb Guards are a platoon of the Old Guard, which is the 3rd Infantry Regiment. So it's Army.
Yeah. Okay.
They've all been young men except for 3 young ladies, and they serve generally from 1 to 2 years, and it's a very prestigious assignment.
Oh, it really is. I know.
It is they receive a I guess
Badge?
a badge that is permanent, and essentially it's a defining moment in their lives. They go on to other things, but they always remember that they had the responsibility to guard the unknowns 24 hours a day.
Do we happen to have and you can see we're sort of freewheeling it here now, but do we happen to have any of these soldiers that ended up in a very high position that we know of? That
There's some that have progressed very nicely. I don't have their names
in their ranks. Yeah.
But it was very interesting that at our last Christmas party, when I spoke to several of them, many of them had assignments that they had just been selected to flight school. Many of them were on orders to Iraq. Others were going to other places in the United States Army. And
I
Now,
might
Dan-
add
go
something
ahead,
here.
Libby.
Post 44 sponsors a Christmas party for the Tomb Guards. There's only 26 of them at a time. And we hold this off post so they can let their hair down, if they had any,
Oh, yeah.
and bring their families, their young children, and their
Oh, that's
girlfriends,
nice.
and I hope only one apiece. But this is the one time of the year that they're all off duty at the same time to
Really?
come to
Well,
our
who-
party.
Who's
and
on duty?
they
men
were-
who have served in the Guard in the past who are still stationed at Fort Myer. And that's
I'll
their
be
own
darned.
tradition.
I'll be darned.
And we do have a nice time, and
I'll
they're
bet.
very nice young men.
Yeah. How many usually show up?
Mostly all of them.
Most.
Probably.
That's great.
And they all crowd
And their
up on the
families.
stage
And
of
their
the
family.
Lion Park Community Center, and they sing Christmas carols. And believe me, the Army Chorus, they are not. But they're loud, and they're having a good time.
But they know how to pick up the piano when it's needed.
Oh, I'll bet.
can do
yeah.
that.
We're down to about the last 2 or 3 minutes. Let me.
Well,
maybe you had something
picture
else.
this. The piano, the grand piano that normally stays on the stage, was on the floor to make room for them. And at the end of the evening, they clean up the hall, lickety-split, and 4 of them lifted the grand piano from the floor to the stage.
You gotta be kidding. Really? You're just making that up. They really did
No,
it,
I
Dan?
saw
They
it.
did it. They did it.
Oh my God. How long does the party? How long does the party usually last?
From 6 to 10.
6 to 10, yeah, and they're all and bring their families and what have you and so forth. Tell us a little bit more. Just so we have about a minute and a half here about the post itself. Now, you're any of you veterans around here, you can still join, right, Libby?
Well, I'm not, the post needs new members, but for residents of Green Spring, I would not suggest joining an Arlington post because
yeah, okay.
we do not have a post home. We're a small post, and we meet in each other's homes, or we might meet at Post 85 or Post 139 in Arlington. But all
Isn't there someone recruiting here? Didn't I see something on Channel 6? Where
Kurt
someone-
Ross
You
is
put
trying
in a plug for him.
is trying to establish a Green Spring post, and Lou Lipscomb, who is the commander of Post 176 up at Amherst Avenue by the bridge, will sponsor us to form a post here on Green Spring for people who don't care to drive out at night to go to meetings.
Yeah.
And we might even have a viable post here if we got enough interest. 31 members of Post 176 live in Green Spring, so we could be an outpost.
Oh, yeah, good. Dan, you have anything last
Well, I
you
would
want to
say,
say here that we
make my
missed?
plug for history.
Yeah,
I'm
do that.
interested in working with any number of groups on the history of our country, of photographic history particularly. I do work on subjects including the Civil War, the veterans going to reunions after the Civil War, different subjects that include even the family of George Washington.
Oh yeah, wonderful. Well, Dan, let me before we close here, now we have an active history group here. We have regular programs, and you're certainly invited occasionally to come over. Now, for example, we're going to have one tomorrow at I guess 10:30 on Gettysburg. So, but anytime, get a hold of Libby, and if you're free, I'd like you to come over.
Thank you.
Dan, thank you very, very much. Don't run off. We're not finished. We have to close here, so you can stay here. Okay, folks, thank you very much for watching us. Let's look and see what's going to happen later on in the week here. You'll see it on your screen here from Seabrook, remembering the Morro Castle tonight and Friday at 8 p.m. And then we'll have some special programming at the BCF Staff Talent Show at 2 and 8 p.m. Thursday. That should be very fine. And remember that we have Trash Talk coming up, and that's always a great program. And if you haven't watched it, I urge you to watch it this time. So have a very happy Veterans Day, and Dan, Libby, thank you once again for being here, and you have a good day.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Kathy Bonner. Welcome back to Trash Talk. Today, the age-old discussion, paper or plastic? Which is better? There are pluses and minuses for each. It takes energy to process it, to make either a plastic bag or a paper bag. Some people prefer one or the other. They have different uses. They reuse them when they get home. That's great. What I would like to encourage today is also taking your own reusable bags to the store. A lot of stores will even give you a 5-cent credit for every reused bag that you have. So think about your pocketbook too. And after about 10 uses, you've paid for this already. So it's really nice. Research shows that in 2006, that's the most recent statistics we have, the recycle rate for plastic bags was only 5%. That's pretty sad. There's like 95% of the plastic bags they're using are out in the landfill or blowing around down the stream valley. So let's try and be a little more responsible. They're great for picking up dog waste. They're great for taking the garbage out. They're nice to have around for various things, but let's not let them loose in the environment. The plastic bags are made of a byproduct of natural gas, so we're depleting the petroleum supply when we use so many plastic bags. And if we use the paper bags, just making paper out of wood pulp uses a lot of energy, and it smells really bad. They use a lot of very harsh chemicals to dissolve some of the cellulose, and then it goes back into the environment too, and the water gets contaminated. So, as often as you can, reuse a bag, whether it's paper or plastic, or get your own canvas. Some people carry the little crocheted bags in their car or in their purse, and they're handy for picking up a few things at the store or carrying your mail up from the cubby holes. So think about it, paper or plastic, or bring your own. BYOB, bring your own bag, come on. See you next week for Trash Talk.